What is up, guys and gals? My name is Splattercat, and we are here at the Nerd Castle with another episode of Mountain Blade Warband. In the previous episode, we had more or less just hunted bandits for a while, and then finally we had taken over Esmeralda, right there. I always liked the name. It always reminded me of, like, Esmeralda, which is weird, because, like, Esmeralda is one of those names where if you guys ever played Wizards and Warriors, like back in the day, it was kind of like a Dungeons & Dragons type game for the NES, but it was called Wizards and Warriors. And every time you went to a castle to rescue somebody, their name would be something like medieval sounding, like Guinevere or Esmeralda. And I don't know, Esmeralda always reminds me of rescuing. I guess you went like on turns. I don't know what inspired this knight, but apparently one princess wasn't good enough for him. Apparently he was making like a harem back at his castle. But you would go rescue all these princesses, and they were all different colors because obviously Wizards and Warriors supports diversity, and so all of the princesses were like different colors. So there was like a blue one, and there was like a pink one, and so it was kind of like a Star Trek diversity. But that guy's gonna shoot me with an arrow. I can tell already. Dick. But, as I was saying, you would go out and you would rescue all these different people, and you actually spent a lot of time climbing trees, too, which was kind of a weird thing about that game. I don't recall the point in King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table where they spent like a large portion of their adventure climbing magic trees that were filled with enormous bees that had treasure and whatnot. But in any case, I don't know, that diatribe kind of came out of nowhere. Esmeralda reminds me of rescuing Esmeralda, who was like the second boss. I think Esmeralda, you rescued her after you fought like this giant bat thing. I don't know, go play Wizards and Warriors. It's a pretty badass game, even to this day. I need to get my NES back from my parents' house. That's what it comes down to. I think either my sister absconded with it, or it's still at my parents' house, but I really, really, really want that NES back. I've been having a weird jonesing for old NES games lately, and I don't like to emulate, just me personally. Emulators just don't do it for me. It's not the same experience. Like having grown up with an Atari 2600 and the actual controllers in my hand from the NES, I can't go back now. It's just weird. I have thought about briefly, I have a friend that has one of these weird combo machines that he ordered on Amazon.com, where it's this weird brick, and it plays Super Nintendo games, and something else. Like, they all fit into the same slot. It's sort of a multi-purpose digital interface type deal. It's weird. It's a weird machine. I will say that about it. It's a machine that definitely has kind of a, I don't know, malodorous, it's a machine that definitely feels disreputable. Like, it feels like the kind of thing that you might pick up at a weird flea market in the middle of nowhere. But anyways, it works. As long as it works perfectly fine, and it's got different plugs for the different controllers too, so that you can either use third-party or the originals. Kind of a cool device, but at the same time, one of those things that I would be terrified all the time that was going to break pretty soon. I also want to get a Super Nintendo again. I have a friend that I think is going to sell me one pretty soon. I miss playing Breath of Fire. It's been a long time since I played Final Fantasy VI or Breath of Fire, and both of those are ones that I don't want to play in an emulated format. I want to play them on the screen. But anyways, let's get back to playing Mountain Blade Warband here. There's a couple things we could focus on right now. And I'm hoping that in the next little bit, Vaegirs will sue for peace. That'll make it so that I can jump in and start fighting with Swadia, sort of poking some of their tigers, poking some of the collective Swadian tigers that I can get away with. And once they have been poked in the most ambiguous of senses, they should come back at us and want to fight with us, because that's what happens. I mean, if somebody walked up to me on the street and was like, poke, at first I'd be like, all right, are we playing some kind of game? And I might like poke them back. But then by like the fourth or fifth time I got poked, I'd be like, no, I think this is a hostile poking. I'm looking at the intent of this poking, and I'm feeling like it's going in kind of a negative, violent direction. I'm getting a sort of weird, I'm gonna grab you in the parking lot vibe from this whole thing, and frankly, I left my whistle at home, so I think we're gonna head this one off at the pass, and I'm just gonna hit you first. Let's kill these bandits off, because our morale is still diminishing at a really, really weird pace. We did level up in the last episode, so I should probably put something into leadership, try and keep people a little bit happier, or at least making it so I don't have to pay them quite as much. That's probably why they're so grumpy with me. I keep minimizing their wages. I'm taking the industry of warfare and just turning it into kind of a non-profitable enterprise for the people engaged in the actual fighting, but at least I'm on the front lines with them. It could be a lot worse. I could be that guy who's just in the back lines like, oh, you know, swing at that guy over there. All right. Oh, no, the enemy's coming. I'm going to run away. Kind of hiding in the back with the rest of the colonels and all those guys. That guy just hit me with an axe, or at least he tried. He missed, though. Luckily, his aim is terrible. He's used to aiming at trees. If you notice, that was a lumberjacking axe. And there's this thing that, it's kind of a lesser-known published fact about trees, but they don't move much. They don't attempt to dodge you very often when you try and stab them or hit them with an axe. I stab with an axe. It's not very effective, but eventually you'll get through. Just keep trying it. The next time you chop wood, just stab it. Watch, it's my secret technique. It works out okay. I mean, it's not the best way to chop firewood. Am I going to claim that I have mastered chopping firewood? No. But I will say that I have my own unique flair. I have my own unique way about the whole process, and it works out the way that you want it to. That guy's now dead, and now we're cheering. If somebody killed me and then started cheering, I would feel like I had drastically lived my life in the improper direction. We lost some Mamluk. Those damn Mamluks. I don't even know what to say about them, and I'm sitting on this menu right now. You guys can't see, but my nose is very itchy at the moment. And so, unfortunately, I'm going at it with a knuckle like crazy, and so there we go. Itch accomplished. Let's continue. We've addressed it. We've talked about it. Let's move forward. I have an itchy nose, just like everybody else. I mean, my cat has an itchy nose. I'm assuming you have an itchy nose. You know what one of my big terrors is? As the channel has gotten larger, I've had people that have requested that I meet them at, like, PAX or to go to, like, Comic-Con or something like that. And there's this terrifying, it's kind of an illogical fear to a certain respect. Like, I've got this weird fear that somebody's going to catch me picking my nose. And it's not like I sit around just rooting around all day doing it, but it's one of those things that everybody does. And I have this strange phobia that I'm just going to be like, you know what, it's safe. I'm in a bathroom stall right now. This thing's just been bugging me for an hour, and I'm just going to, like, get my job done. And the second I get home, there's just going to be a picture up on the Facebook or something of me just digging in just the most aggressive fashion, just going to war with my nose. Is that an irrational fear? I think it might count as an irrational fear. We need to sell off some of this loot before I talk too much further about being a nasty bastard. But anyways, let's put that in there. Please have enough money. I hate it when I click in all this loot and then they don't have enough money to pay me. I'm like, well, that was a giant waste of time. I'm going to rearrange some of this loot too, so it's not sitting around. Let's go hunt some Vaegirs, I guess. We're going to go find some lords. They're probably circulating slightly at this point. We haven't gone to war against any major lords in quite some time. You'll recall that a couple episodes ago, we had wiped out like 8 or 9 of their lords down to nothing, so their faction was pretty much reset to a certain level. Let me get in here and grab a bit more food too, though, because it could be a while before we get back in. Actually, no. Put that back, and then we'll grab some cheese and also some dried meat. I seem to recall that in the original vanilla Mountain Blade, there was a lot more dried meat around. Like, there was a bunch more jerky. I feel like I liked vanilla Calradia better than Mountain Blade Warband Calradia, simply based on the fact that there's not enough beef jerky to go around. And I paused in the middle of my sentence right there in kind of a weird Captain Kirk-esque way. I didn't mean to. It just sort of happened. Like, sometimes I get like halfway through a thought, and then my brain's like, you know what? To hell with it. And my brain decides to throw it out long before my mouth decides to stop talking about it. And that's the point at which I'm like, oh, damn it, what are you doing, brain? We're supposed to be hooked up here. We're supposed to be on the same team. Like, you know how it goes, neurological system hanging out with me? Like, I don't know, I guess I'm the soul, I suppose. It's weird to think of yourself as like a pilot for your body. Do that sometime. Just sit around for a little bit and think for a moment that there may be a soul like inside of you, and that's like your perception and your sentience is coming from that. Or there's also, if you've ever watched, there's a number of different philosophers like Daniel Dennett who talk about this, how sentience is just a giant illusion. That's kind of a terrifying lecture. Don't watch that one if you don't want to have some serious, deep, awful thoughts in the middle of the night. But anyways, what I will say is think of yourselves, I think about it like Men in Black. You know how there was that little tiny alien where he's like, the galaxy is in Orion's belt. And he uses the B, like the consonant. I noticed when he says that, when he says Orion's belt, he says the B consonant really, really hard right there, which is why I embellished it. Just a little bit of look into why I did that. But anyways, I think of myself as like a pilot for this body, and it makes me feel cool. It makes me feel like I'm in a Gundam or like Mech Warrior or something along those lines. Or if you want to stretch a little bit further, what was the name of that game for the PS2? Can't remember the name of the game. There was another mech game for the PS2, and it wasn't Armored Core, so we're not going to go in the Armored Core direction with this. But it was really, really popular. It was one of the launch titles, and I can't remember now. I'll remember it. Watch, the second I stop recording this, I'll remember what it was called. It started with an E or an A or something. Meanwhile, and Rayvaden, wow, Boyar Reland and King Yeraglek have some huge armies. 790 men between the two of them. Oh my god, and they're riding out on me. That's not okay. That's a pretty beefy army, too. That's an army that definitely knows what's what. It knows its way around a sword blade, that's for sure. All the archers are like, hey! You know your way around a bow, then. Like, thank you. We like to be addressed with everybody else. It makes us feel like we're part of the team. Fickle. Fickle, fickle archers. Well, I guess we'll hunt some bandits while we're out here, just sort of sitting around. It seems like a giant waste of time because none of their lords are riding around in circles. But then again, what can you do? I'm at the whims of the game's AI right now for anything interesting to do. And as it stands right now, they are not supplying me with lots of interesting stuff. Like, there's not a whole lot of activities to diddle at the moment. I diddle my activities. I like that word a lot better than just participating. Participation, not good enough for me. I like to get in there and diddle my activities. Ow! Horsey! My horse is like, you're telling me I'm the one that got hit with it. So they're throwing javelins at me. I forgot that I was fighting with tundra bandits here. It's one of those downsides. I had completely forgotten that tundra bandits even have javelins. It's been a while. Is it Stained that sing that? I used to hate that song when it would come on the radio. There was this period in time, back in the Papa Roach days, where Stained, there was this band called Stained that was around for a really, really long time, and I don't even know if they're still playing. They probably are. I mean, Limp Bizkit is still playing shows. So if Limp Bizkit is playing shows, I'm pretty sure just anything goes anymore in the music industry because there is no excuse for Limp Bizkit. But anyways, back to the point, there was this band called Stained back in the day, and for whatever reason, they had this song where it's like, it's been a while, and they played that song like every 10 minutes on the radio for probably a decade. Up until the point where just ad nauseum you hated it, and just when you thought it was about to go away, they released a version where it was Fred Durst and the lead singer singing it, and you were like, oh my god, how could this get any worse? Like, really? You took a song that was pretty terrible already, and then you added Fred Durst to it. Like, was that necessary? Did you really need to do that to the music industry? I mean, I don't feel like music ever hurt you to the extent where you needed to get revenge on that level. It's sort of, I don't know, it's awful. It's downright awful, and it happened, and I wish that it hadn't. But anyways, that's... When I said it's been a while, for whatever reason, I got flashbacks to that period of time in musical history where Stained was roaming the earth just playing terrible music over and over and over again and forcing the rest of us to be like, how many eyebrow rings can you have, man? Really? Like 14 eyebrow rings? I would cut it off around 2 or 3 if I was an eyebrow ring enthusiast. Because when you got 1, it's clear to me that you like eyebrow rings because you have 1. 2, I assume that you're really, really into eyebrow rings. By 3 or 4, I'm like, all right, this guy is a strong proponent of eyebrow rings to the point of lobbying for them. I mean, I bet he would probably go to Congress and be like, hey, eyebrow rings are the shit. At which point I would be like, I agree with you. Like, you have an eyebrow ring. That's dope. I don't judge. But right about the time that you've got about 37 of them in one eye, to the point where when you blink, it's like clink, jingle, clink, jingle. That's the point at which I think you may be overdoing it slightly, like 37. I think it's probably in the 20s somewhere is where the cutoff zone for eyebrow rings are. But nobody told the lead singer of Stained. He just kept going. He just kept on going. It was ugly. It was bad. It was a situation that should not be repeated ever. It was sort of like parachute pants. It's one of those things we look at in retrospect and be like, all right, so we crossed that line already historically, but we should never go back there. I don't really know what to do with this episode, guys. I guess I should start sending people around to attack more stuff. Oh, Radagir's under attack. Let's go jump in on that action. I'm excited about this. Who's it under siege by? No one. It's just under a ghost siege right now. Which is slightly more terrifying. I don't know which is more terrifying, a bunch of Northmen with crazy beards and scariness, or B, the second part. Oh, we're running down Yeraglek. Let's do this thing. Big battle. Let's go. We're going to charge with 480. Oh, hell yes. This is what is going on right now. I am so excited that we finally got to go into a battle. I'm going to tell my own guys to follow me, though, because I don't trust them not to do dumb stuff. Looks like we are going to be circled. And seeing as we're up against a Vaegir army, it's King Yeraglek. What the hell am I talking about? Of course we're up against a Vaegir army. I was confused there for a moment about what we've been fighting. Archers are going to hold this position right here. Infantry will send them down into the valley, and then we will tighten them up because they do have horsemen, and so we want our infantry nice and tight. We want them to be just absolutely doing their Pilates. We need them to be getting down on it, just kind of doing all those butt flexing exercises. I've never been to a Pilates course, but I always just assume that it's mostly butt flexing. Those of you that do Pilates can probably enlighten me, but that's when somebody says I'm going to do Pilates, I automatically in my head, I assume that they're just sitting there in their chair for an hour or two just flexing their butt cheeks. Because when I say that I do Pilates, that's more or less the way that I do it. I'm just like, oh yeah, I flexed my butt cheeks like 8 times today. I keep count. I don't know if that's acceptable or if anybody else does that, but you should. You should keep count every now and again. It helps you keep perspective in life. Perspective of what? Not too sure. But it lets you keep perspective of something. Mainly the numerary advantage of flexing butt cheeks. You takes what you takes. What's up, guys? You thought you could just sit on the hill and swing at people. You weren't swinging, you were shooting. It's like, excuse me, I am a bowman. We do not swing our bows. There's none of that crazy Legolas shit happening in here. We do not fight with our bows. Mine is a master-crafted piece of beauty. My mom made me this bow. My grandma helped. Like, all right, so it's clear to me that your bow is very dear to you and that you don't swing it. I apologize. I render forth an apology. Bring me a foe that I might beat him about the head and shoulders. Seriously, who used all the shampoo? I mean, now we're left with nothing but Irish Spring. And Irish Spring is not kind to those with the soft lower areas. I mean, that stuff burns. It feels as though my crotch is burning with nature right now. Bring back the remainder of the head and shoulders, so that I might beat you over it. This is not cool, guys. Can you tell that I've pretty much just like run out of things to talk about at this point? Yeah, you know, we're killing some guys. That's like if you had to summarize the entire point of Mount & Blade. I feel like in the first episode of a Mount & Blade LP, you could pretty much cover everything that's happening. Like, in general, you want to stop sieges from happening. You want to slash people in the face with weaponry. And when they reinforce, you decide whether or not you want to go back and take a defensive position or continue your charge. And I feel like I've more or less summarized the entire breadth. There we go. That's the word. A breadth. What the hell is a breadth? A breadth. There we go. We've talked about the entire breadth of what there is to have on offer in Mount & Blade here. I mean, there are more specific things, but if I had to give like the 2-second tips, I'm going to try and get back to my own lines now because I'm being shot at and it makes me sad, especially considering I'm looking quite feathered at the moment. Damn it, stop shooting me with arrows. That guy right there, that guy is the guy. He's mad because I stabbed his friend. At least that's what I assume it's for. He has a vendetta. He's like, I will avenge you, Ingvar. You were my best friend. You were the only digital pal I ever had. We grew up in the hoods of Rayvaden together, clicking on the corners, hiding the Fetty in the bush. And now I have nobody. Who will I hide my Fetty with? Who? Tell me. Who? And now the battle's over. God. That's a pretty beat-up battlefield. That's looking pretty good right now. That's how I like my battlefields to look, just littered with the corpses of my foes, just everywhere. Lots and lots of dead folks. You have 3 renown for a big battle like that. We got another charge left to go. Alright, well, much like an untapped credit card, we've still got charges left to handle, so let's get in here. And it looks like they're coming right for us, so let's send them out. I'm going to put my archers right here, and I got to do this rapidly because they are not holding back. They are definitely unleashing. They gave themselves extra horsey kibbles today because they are flying. They are definitely fueled by something other than vapors. Although if you've ever worked on a ranch or been around horses, you will know that horses have just ridiculous amounts of vapors on store, which they will release quite freely. Horses have no shame. It's a strange thing. I had a friend when I was a kid, so I had this friend when I was growing up, and I don't know if you ever had the benefit of having a rich friend when you grew up, but I hope that someday you have that experience, because having a rich friend is kind of a unique thing, because it gives you a look into an alternate world which you can't partake in, but you can occasionally visit. But as I was saying, I had a rich friend. His dad owned like something in Boeing or something like that. Like his dad owned a pretty major chunk of Boeing or something along those lines, and they owned a horse ranch. And so, you know, being like a lower middle class suburban kid, you know, you don't get to ride horses much. Oh, that was the worst thing that could ever happen. Oh, I fear for my life. And that guy's riding in front of me like a roadblock. That was a pretty intelligent move, even if he did it on accident. Allied cavalry, what are you doing, my idiotic friend? But as I was saying, they own a ranch. And so if you've ever ridden horses and you don't know what you're doing, you'll find this weird thing that your friend will do, and they put me on a donkey. And you know how emasculating it is to be put on a donkey when everybody else gets put on like a normal-sized horse? I sat on this donkey, and let's be clear, this donkey was not having any of my shit. This donkey was not pleased that I was on it. This donkey was like, you realize that I'm not a horse, right? And I'm like, listen, man, I didn't have any part in the organization of this activity. I'm just kind of here. Like, I didn't even want to ride a horse. I just wanted to stay home and play Xbox, but for whatever reason, I'm here. And so we need to make the best of this. I mean, you're not looking that great. I'm not looking that great. But you put like a short guy on a donkey when you've got a bunch of statuesque other males and, you know, pretty women, because I've noticed this weird thing. Well, never mind. I'm not going to go there. But anyways, pretty women riding big horses and, you know, statuesque men riding horses. And then there's me in the corner like a weird hairy-footed hobbit hanging out on a donkey. Not cool. If you own a horse ranch, do not make your friend that doesn't know how to ride a horse, don't make him ride the donkey. Just a little bit of advice right there. It's not going to increase your friendship levels. It's probably... it sucks. There. I said that totally straight. I was laughing, but then I realized the true just misery of the situation, and I turned it around. We got a straight face now. Not cool. Don't put your friend on the donkey. Teach him how to ride a little bit. Be like, you know, you make this little like... You make that noise, and you kick the horse, which I always felt like that was kind of mean. Like, you got like the little spur things, and you're like, horse, go. And if somebody wants me to go and do anything, kicking me is not the way. Like, I would respect my horse to the extent that, like, kicking me is probably not the best way to motivate me. And so I assume it's probably not the best way to motivate a horse either. And it's one of those strange situations. Horseback riding is an activity that terrifies me. I mean, this is an animal that I think in a lot of cases truly hates you. I mean, most of my interactions with horses have been negative. Maybe it's just because, like, the only times I've ever ridden a horse, I've ridden a horse on maybe 2 occasions, and on both occasions it was like somebody else's horse. But I got the distinct feeling that this rather large, like 4,000-pound animal just absolutely loathed me. Like, at first, I was like, oh, awesome, he's taking me towards that apple tree. Like, he's worried about me. He's worried that I didn't get enough breakfast this morning. And then all of a sudden, it's like, swapak, and you're like, all right, cool. I just got hit with like 9 branches, and I'm bleeding out of my thyroid. And this is kind of a weird situation to be in. I don't think I've ever bled internally before from being stabbed with a stick, but this is a new experience. But you know what? I'm going to give the horse the benefit of the doubt and assume that the horse just was trying to help me stay healthy because he noticed I was looking a little emaciated. I don't eat breakfast, and they say it's the most important meal of the day, so I thought the horse was trying to help me. Next, the horse took me towards a fence, and I was like, oh, he's trying to metaphorically tell me to expand my boundaries and that the world can't contain me. And then he scrubbed off all the skin on the side of my calf, and I was like, oh my god, I think he seriously is trying to commit homicide on me. And then thirdly and lastly, and this is the one that really took the cake right here, and I was trying to assign some kind of metaphoric value to it, but he like started sprinting towards this barn, and I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, the horse is running. I've never ridden a horse in my life, but at this point, the horse has decided he wants to go fast. And given his track record thus far, I'm assuming that this horse has evil on his mind. Like, the first 2, I gave him a pass. 2 strikes. You know what? Baseball rules. The third strike, he kind of ran straight at this barn. Like, he was playing chicken with the barn, but the barn can't get out of the way. Like, I feel like the barn had no idea what was going on in this game, and I felt like I didn't have any idea what was going on. I felt like I was a bystander for some horrible game of chicken. And indeed, the horse did stop, and I kind of flew forward off the horse. And you know what? The thing that I gathered is that if you grew up in a city, horseback riding is probably not for you. I mean, the city has a lot of unique things about it. Like, for example, you can play Find the Syringe. That's a fun game that city folk like to play. If you're somebody from, like, a rural area, go ask your urban friend to go play Find the Syringe sometime. I'm sure they'll show you all of the in-depth tactics. Like, for example, but there's another thing, is like, people that live in cities like me, we're always looking for nature. We're going to be like, oh, let's go look at nature. And this kind of ties into Find the Syringe. And so you'll see something orange, and you'll be like, oh, look, it's a beautiful cat. Oh, nope, that's a pizza crust with a syringe in it. And so, like, why there's a syringe with inside the pizza crust, I don't know. I mean, apparently there's like this new way of just kind of juicing up or tying off. I don't really know. Apparently you eat a piece of pizza, you then inject the drugs in yourself, and then you inject the pizza with the drugs because you want him to enjoy himself too. But you don't finish the pizza, you just leave the crust there. But anyways, we're going to help out with this Siege of Kuron now. I don't think I've talked about anything Mountain Blade related in like the last 2 episodes, so we should probably get back on that. Dirajun wants us here. Is he here? Please tell me Dirajun is here. All right. I love it when he's right here nearby. So we're going to get our reputation on with Dirajun. He's probably going to tell us to go scout in just a minute. And it looks as though, oh, they just gave us like freebie experience. We leveled up. I totally forgot about that. I'm going to continue working charisma because we need bigger armies and we need to be better at doing whatever it is that we do, I guess. Let's see here. I could go with prisoner management. That's not a terrible thing to put points into because prisoners are worth a ton of money. However, on the opposite end, I could give myself Riding 5, which would be pretty badass. I could give myself Weapon Master 5. Let's go for Weapon Master 5 because we've been capped out for a little while on all of our stats. I want to start putting points into things. I don't like how it resets everything whenever I hit the reset key. It makes me sad. It's one of those little changes that I wish would be adjusted. We'll do Weapon Master 5. And you know what? We'll put some points into throwing because we can. And I feel like my points, your points that cost multiple points for one level up, the higher it gets. So I tend to put my points into lower level stuff just in case I got caught in a corner and I have to throw something at somebody. It's a legitimate tactic. It's like camping in an FPS. Throwing stuff at people when you're panicking. You have to make a sound though. You have to make a sound when you throw things at people, and you have to flick your wrist. Like, you're not supposed to like cock back and throw things. If you're throwing things at somebody in a self-defense fashion, I was told that you have to go back and be like, and then you just kind of, you do like a little limp-wristed thing, and that makes them go away because they realize you're too weak of a target, and then they just leave you alone. It's no fun for them anymore. Let's get back into combat here. This is a weird setup. Let me get my archers back here, like always, and I'm going to try and find the best place where they can fire into combat. I think it's going to be right about there. And then from here, what I'd like to do is I'm going to have them spread out a tad, and that is going to limit the firing lines of a lot of these guys, but at the same time, it also makes them a smaller target. Makes the siege go a little bit better. It looks like this is going to be a long episode. I just took a look at the timer that I have running when I play these, and I guess we're going to play a long episode here. Whatever. I don't... Oh, you know. Sometimes you got to do a long episode. I was caught up in the moment. To quote Asia, it was the heat of the moment. Telling me where your heart something. It was the heat of the moment, shown in her eyes. That is a song that inherently rocks. By the way, I mean, Asia, they don't have a lot of great songs, but that song rocks the ass off the world. Whenever that song comes on the radio, I've noticed that I speed up. When I'm driving on the highway and that song comes on, I speed up by at least 10 miles an hour. It's a weird thing. I can't control my foot. My foot hears it. It's like when my foot hears Foreigner, for example. So if my foot hears Head Games, automatically I speed up. Or on the opposite end, if I hear like Life in the Fast Lane, that's another song that inherently just rocks ass. My foot automatically goes towards the floor. I don't know why. Something about the... That's just a really, really rocking riff. Like apparently, like every 10 years or so, a band comes out with an amazing riff. Amazing riff? No, an amazing riff. We're not talking about Oasis right here, which is a band that has a huge riff in the middle of it. We're getting served right now. What is going on, guys? I felt like this was going to go better in our favor. Anyways, as I was saying, every now and again, a band comes out with a song that just has an amazing riff. And I think that's what carries Life in the Fast Lane. It's got an amazing twangy riff at the beginning. And it causes me to drive fast. At least that's what I tell the officers. Seeing as our archers are now kind of expanded out a little bit too far, I'm going to collapse them and see if they can do a little bit better. These guys over here are caught up against the wall, and it looks like most of the shooting is going towards this center region now anyways. So let's concentrate our fire a tad. Off in the corner, there's some campfire that's like, I'm working on it, but I can't concentrate much. That was bad. I'm going to back off it. Whatever. Pun jokes about fire concentrating. God. There is some serious firepower being leveled on that wall. Anybody who's in the arrow collection business is definitely going to be making a little bit of money tonight, simply based on that wall. It's impressive that they got the arrows to stick inside a stone wall, though. I mean, I'm impressed, although little things impress me. I mean, I'm occasionally impressed by just really, really stupid stuff. For example, I'm impressed when I see somebody that's just like picking their ear on the highway, and I'm like, yeah, that just made my day, and I don't know why. It did. Just seeing somebody else in that exposed state. I feel like we are definitely just getting tooled up right now. This is bad. This guy's over here like sniping or something. I knew he was going to step out in just a second. Maybe oh, there we go. I'll shoot this guy. There it is. Ooh, dodged that one just in time. That's a little tactic I like to use. I call it the shifty shooty. The shifty shooty tactic is pretty much what it sounds like. So you shoot and then you shift. And it's only when you're squared off against guys who also have bows. So they'll fire at you at the exact same time that you fire at them. And the trick to shifty shooty, ooh, that was almost awesome. I almost did something badass. There it is. I shot in between my own troops to hit that guy in the chest. Have I gotten better at have I got better at archering? I think I have in between here and like the previous episodes. I mean, you guys recall in the first 1 or 2 episodes, there was a definite adjustment period in which I was not so good at shifty shooty. Now, shifty shooty seems to be coming to me naturally. It's all part of the practice. They have a really strong front line right here. We are not making any sort of dent in this siege ladder. We are shouting quite well, though. There's one thing I can say my army excels at, it is shouting loudly. I can't imagine that helps out their home life, though. Shouting, not so good for relationships. One of those things. Probably not conducive to the old, oh, I don't know. Not conducive to landing the old pinch and squeal, I suppose. You can't really shout people into submission. I mean, you could try. I don't think it's going to work for you, though. Alright, archers. It's time for you guys to move forward. Let's step on up to here. It's time to step up. It's time to be that guy. And you guys have noticed that I've been hanging back in this episode. It's because I'm terrified of what'll happen if I step up on that wall. Something bad, I assure you. In fact, what is happening to these guys right now? They're not even on the wall, and they're being owned, so it's just something to bear in mind. That is a really, really furry wall. Look at that thing. Is there a point on that wall that they haven't shot at least 400 to 500 times? I hope they line up on that walkway right there. Should I send my archers up the wall? I feel like I'm going to have to. Archers, go ahead. We have no choice. There's nothing left to shoot at, and I think this is probably going to turn into a multi-battle thing. We'll break it off in between here in the next episode anyway. Sorry, pal. Just wasn't your dia. Whoa, where did that come from? Who's shooting? And now I'm going to shoot back at you. Yeah, you don't like that, do you? It's not so fun when you've got a little bit of competition. I'm gonna go get this guy over here. This guy has kind of a needy look on his face that says stab me. Or slash me. I've got a saber, so I don't even think I can stab. Let's try. Yep, I can only do an upward strike. Oh, there's a bunch of guys down in here. So let's take our archers then, and we'll set them up along this wall maybe. Oh my god, there are so many archers down in there. And I'm gonna catch an arrow any moment right now. I promise you. Of all the promises I could potentially make you here on the Nerd Castle, that is probably the most assured. Luckily, I've got my handy-dandy minion to stand in front of me and take all the arrows straight to the face so that I don't have to. Did they remove the loot from the ground? It looks like the loot has been slightly removed. Let's take the barbed arrows then, because a lot of these guys haven't had a chance to use up all their arrows, and then we'll get back to it. Wow, this is like the endless. This fortress is really starting to become a major problem for us. I blame Dira June, frankly. However, this is a really good opportunity to get really, really good at shooting Zabozis. Which is how adults say shooting a bow. Like we say shooting Zabozis, because it really helps people take us seriously. Use that in a job interview sometime. If you're ever like interviewing for an archery position, just be like, yeah, I'm pretty good at shooting Zabozis. Or like if you're on the Olympic Commission, he's pretty good at shooting Zabozis. You gotta do what you gotta do. That was a terrible shot. I don't even know what I was aiming at right there. He keeps cocking his head back, which makes me miss. I mean, he doesn't make me miss. I mean, I miss all on my own volition, but him trying to dodge me is not making the situation any more simplistic. I think a better spot might be down there. Let's try that. Tactical maneuver. And then we've also got more infantry coming down and back in, so this should alleviate itself pretty soon. I think some of these guys have overshot to the extent that they just have no arrows left. They're just standing down there waiting for the whole thing to end. I feel like I keep getting lucky. I've stood next to a lot of guys who died in this episode. Like, seriously. We haven't taken a single scratch as of yet, and it's gone very, very well. There it is. So here's the firing line that we wanted to be part of. That should score us a few more kills, especially if they decide to do something pesky like that right there and spawn more units. Like an overcrowded bathhouse, there are too many units in here already. So we need to start eliminating units. Which might get you arrested were you to do it in a bathhouse, but I'm always kind of jealous of people that can go to like hot springs and just like be nude in the presence of other people and not feel weird. Damn you Protestant upbringing. It's like, yeah, I'm naked. What of it? Such a great. That's like, I wish so deeply that that was me. But I feel as though I've been brainwashed my entire life. That or maybe I just studied too much biology and I just realized how gross the human body is and I don't want to sit in a pool of like 400-degree water with a bunch of other naked dudes. Not to mention that spring's been there for like a bajillion years and everybody's just been roasting themselves in it making man stew for the last millennia. But anyways. You're dead. And you're dead. God. They had a lot of marksmen in here. We are single-handedly lowering the market. If there are any marksmen who are not engaged in this battle... Oh, dick. If I get knocked out at this point in the battle, I'm going to be so ashamed of myself. My tail will be tucked. And not like a babe. That's the good way to be tucked. It will be tucked in the terrible way. Yay, we win! And 300 men versus... It took us almost 320 to take out 250. Oh, that's not so bad. You've breached the town walls, but stubborn defenders will resist you in the streets. Oh, that's weak. Of course, and I didn't get anything elite with me. What was that? Where did he even come from? I don't even know what happened right there. Your party loses 30 morale? What? You gotta be 30? What? Alright, I don't approve of that. That's definitely a bit too heavy-handed of a penalty, but as I say, I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'm going to do my best to recover in between here and there. My name is Splattercat. Thank you for joining me in the Nerd Castle for an extra long episode of Mount & Blade Warband. I didn't mean for it to go that long. I still have no idea where that guard came from. He came out of the left like a bat out of hell. But anyways, I'll see you tomorrow. Take care out there, everybody.